Remember, when we come into the schoolhouse, we stand by our desk with our hands at our sides and our eyes facing the flag in the front. Girls may enter first. Boys may follow. Good morning, boys and girls. You may be seated with your feet underneath your desk and your hands folded on top of your desk. It's hard for me to believe that we're already approaching the end of this 1890-91 school year. It's been a wonderful year for all of us, except for one. As you know, in our schoolhouse, we can have children grades 1 through 8. We do not have 8th graders every year, but this year we have 3 8th graders, Henry, Miss Jane, and Miss Victoria, who all hope to graduate next month. In order to graduate from 8th grade, you must pass a very difficult examination. It tests your knowledge in subjects like reading, spelling, math, and even history. 8th grade is as far as most of you will go. Today, we're going to review some of the history information that you need to pass that test. When we look at the chalkboard, we will see a timeline. Who can tell me what a timeline is? And remember, when you wish to answer a question, you raise your hand. I will call on you, and then you stand at your desk with your hands by your side, and you always answer in a complete sentence. Belle, can you stand and tell us what a timeline is? Great job. A timeline takes information and puts it into sequence for us so that we can see when different events took place. Now, a timeline can be short. For instance, if I asked all of you to make a timeline for what you did this morning from when you woke up to the time you had walked to our schoolhouse, they would all be slightly different, and it would be short. But on this timeline, we cover about 300 years. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. It can also be longer, which is why we have an arrow on this side, because many things happened before 1620, but that's where we are starting today. Who can tell me what happened in 1620? Abraham? That's not a sentence, Abraham. Correct. In the year 1620, the Pilgrims arrived. Can anyone tell me what ship the Pilgrims traveled on? Pauline? Yes, they traveled on the Mayflower. So by 1620, I'm going to write Pilgrims and Mayflower. For those of you who are young and think it's not important to know this yet, remember, it's taking our 8th graders a long time to learn all this. So it's never too early to start learning Pilgrims and Mayflowers. Eventually, over time, more and more people began to settle in what is now central Illinois. We call those people the Colonists. They migrated to lots of different places and developed the 13 original colonies. Who can stand and tell us the name of even one of those colonies? Pauline? Good job. Georgia is one. Can anyone else give me another one? I'm going to write the first letter of many of the names on here. See if that will help any of you. try. See if you can come up with any of the other original 13 colonies. And we will continue studying those very soon. Now, do any of you see anything in our schoolhouse that represents the original 13 colonies? Alfred, stand please. That's not a sentence, Alfred. Part of the flag does represent our original 13 colonies. Simon? Yes. The 13 red and white stripes on our flag represent those original 13 colonies. Now, eventually, the colonists decided that the English were raising some of their taxes and even making new taxes without even asking the colonists what they thought about it. And they did not think that was very good. So, in the year 1776, a very important document was signed. Who can tell me what that is? Josiah? Good job. The Declaration of Independence was signed in 1776. And a little bit later, in 1787, another important document was that. Zelma. Yes, in 1787, the Constitution was established. Now, during this time, all of those colonists were in some ways similar to how we are today. What do you think they would have had for some of their morning chores? Josiah? They had to feed their farm animals. Another chore they may have had? Flora? They had to go get water with their water buckets. Great job. Jermaine? They had to cook breakfast. And sometimes the boys worked in the fields and the girls came to school. What do you think they would have eaten compared to what you and I eat? Letitia? They did grow gardens. They grew lots of vegetables that we eat, like carrots and beans and peas, and lettuce, even spinach. When the boys would go hunting, what kind of animals would they get? Charles? That's a great answer. It depended where they lived. If they lived by a river, like Alfred and Henry do, they could go fishing. They could get crabs and turtles from there too. If they lived near the woods, they could go and hunt animals like deer and rabbits and squirrels. So a lot of things were the same between them and us. Who can tell me who the first president of our country was? Miss Pauline? The first president was George Washington. And he was president from 1789 to 1797. Who can tell me who our 16th president was? Gerard? Abraham Lincoln was our 16th president. And he became president in 1861. So I'm going to skip a little bit and put Abraham Lincoln on here. Who can tell me who our current president in this year, 1891, is? Josiah. Very good. Last year, in 1890, our 23rd president, Benjamin Harrison, was elected. I will put him here. Very good. Now, in 1818, something very special for our state of Illinois happened. That was when we got to be an official state, and our statehood happened. we're going to go to the 1840s, which may seem like a long time ago, but it wasn't really. So in the 1840s, a lot of settlers began to migrate to our now state from states that were close to us, like Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, those places. And how would they have gotten here in the 1840s? Edward? They could pack their objects in a buggy, hook it up to a horse or oxen, and they could travel in a wagon. What is another way they could have traveled? Victoria? They could have ridden a horse, only you wouldn't have been able to take very many things from your log cabin if you were only on a horse. Abraham, you are right. A lot even just walked. You really couldn't take much then. But a lot of them did, and those were some of the main ways that we could go. Now, if you lived by a river, you could travel on a boat. In 1848, a very special boat river was finished. That is called, oh, you remember, Mr. Maine? Very good, the IEM Canal, which stands for Illinois and Michigan. Now, a canal is a man-made river. So people took shovels and they dug a huge ditch, almost as big as our schoolhouse, for 96 miles. And it connected Lake Michigan, up near the huge city of Chicago, eventually to the Illinois River, and then to the Mississippi River. Now, when that was completed, it was a national project that would enable produce, people, animals to travel by boat from the northeast part of our country, down through all the Great Lakes, through the Illinois River, down the Mississippi River, to the Gulf of Mexico. That was a very important finish for our country. Now it made it even easier for people to migrate to this part. So the IEM Canal, very special for you to know about. In 1855, something even faster than a canal boat was finished. Who knows what that was? Miss Patsy? Yes, the railroad, the ICRR. Now the ICRR stands for Illinois Central Railroad. And the railroad went through very close to where we live now. In 1855, West Urbana was trying to decide where to make the depot at. They chose a spot 2 miles west of Urbana, in a spot that they designated as West Urbana. And that's where that small little wooden depot building was made. Now, that finished a huge whole Illinois system of rail travel, which made it once again easier for migrants to come all over our state. So the 1840s saw a lot of change in the 1850s. Now, in 1860, something else happened. What happened in 1860? West Urbana was called Champaign, you're right. So now we are officially called Champaign. In 1861, we've already said that Abraham Lincoln became our president. That means he's been alive for a long time. He was born in 1809, way back here. So Abraham Lincoln was alive when the IEM Canal was finished. He was alive when the ICRR went through here. He was alive for all of these things. Now, when he was a young boy, he did go to school for a couple years, Most of his education was self-taught. He was a very intelligent man. What kinds of jobs do you think Abraham Lincoln had before he became president? Elmer? Yes, he was a postmaster. That means he worked at a post office. Anyone know any other jobs? Gerard? Yes, he worked on a canal boat, the kinds of boats that would have been on here, only he was not on the IEM Canal. He was on the river. He was also a surveyor. What does a surveyor do? Simon? A surveyor measures land and lays out the plan for where the roads and the buildings are going to be in a new town, like Champaign was not very long ago. And Abraham Lincoln also was on the 8th Judicial Circuit. He was a lawyer there. For almost 20 years, he would travel from county to county, covering up to 14 counties. He would always travel by horseback, and he would go to different towns, and he would hear cases. He would defend people. He was a very strong supporter of the ICRR and all that they tried to do. He also was involved in the first murder trial in Champaign County. He went on to use that as very good training for everything he did once he became president of the United States. During the time Abraham Lincoln was president, we did have the Civil War that happened from 1861 to 1865. We'll write this on here. There we go. Okay, very good. Now, this is not the only history information that we will need for our 8th grade graduation, but it covers quite a lot. You will need to remember some things that happened before 1620, and we will need to remember some things that haven't been put on here, but these are some of the main questions that will be on your examination.